This 2026 Citizens Hour returns live on radio. Renewed, more interactive and closer to you. You can now join us live every Saturday on West Africa Democracy Radio, 94.9 FM in Dakar, starting 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. in French, and from 10:30 a.m. to 11:55 a.m. in English. You can also follow our live streamings on Facebook and YouTube. Citizens Hour is your space to speak up. You can now comment live on issues, ask questions, and engage directly with our presenters and invited experts as we unpack major developments shaping West Africa. Make your voice heard. Be part of the conversation every Saturday from 9 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. in French and 10:30 a.m. to 11:55 a.m. in English. Well, if you missed the show, catch the rebroadcast 6 p.m. in English and 7:30 p.m. in French. Citizens Hour is your time to speak. Good morning, West Africa, and welcome to Citizens Hour here on West Africa Democracy Radio, 94.9 FM Dakar, and online at WADR.org. You can also get us live on Twitter, Instagram at WADR News, and Facebook, West Africa Democracy Radio English Service. I am Imo Edet here in Dakar.
Citizens Hour on West Africa Democracy Radio. It's your time to speak.
Well, I do have my colleague in Abuja, Usman Umaru, is on standby. Usman.
Yes, Umar, good morning, and good morning, West Africa. Of course, whether you're listening to us live from Dakar on WADR 94.9 FM or anywhere across the globe, either especially via Facebook, YouTube, and all other digital platforms, we are glad to have you with us for the next 90 minutes. Imo.
Yes, and today we are tackling two stories that sit at the very heart of the West African struggle for stable governance and the rule of law. First, we will look at Burkina Faso, where the extradition of former leader Paul Henry Damiba Sandaogo from Togo has sparked a massive debate. Is this a victory for justice or a strategic move in a larger political game? Usman.
Well, in our second conversation, we will be turning our gaze to Benin Republic, a country once hailed as a beacon of democracy in West Africa. Is facing a new reality, a legislature entirely devoid of an opposition. What does this mean for checks and balances in democracy? We'll be asking with a Beninese journalist, Gafodu Sapoho, to get views from the ground. Imo.
And also from the civil society angle, we'll be speaking with Omolara Balogun much later in the show. But let's kick up with our first topic, which is the extradition of Mr. Paul Henry. Justice for politics at play. I mean, this is what we're looking at. Let's refresh your mind that in January 2022, Lieutenant Colonel Paul Henry Sandaogo Damiba led a coup in Burkina Faso and then promising to restore security. Just 9 months later, he himself was ousted by Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the now leader of the country, and fled to Togo. Well, after years in exile, Togo has officially handed him back to the Burkinabe authorities this January 2026. He faces charges ranging from embezzlement to plotting new coups against the current junta. Usman.
Now, joining us to dissect all of this is, of course, a very renowned governance expert. He's also a lawyer. Ibrahim Akani, we're very glad to have you join us. And of course, on the panel also is Frederick Ndeki, also a renowned governance expert, especially on affairs that has to do with West Africa. Gentlemen, you're both welcome to the program.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me to this program, and I'm really delighted to participate.
All right, we do have from Burkina Faso joining us, Mr. Yusuf Ouattara. He's also a policy expert, and he will be joining us in this conversation. Mr. Ouattara, if you have joined us, good morning and welcome. Okay. Mr. Frederick,
Well, obviously,
Yes.
we're yet to have Mr. Otara join us, but Mr. Frederick Ndeki, welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you for the invitation. Happy to be here, and especially happy to meet my elder brother, Ibrahim Khan.
Indeed. Gentlemen, it's good to have you both on the program. And while we wait for Mr. Watara to join us, we will kickstart the conversation. Well, Mr. Khan, thank you again for your time. Well, from a legal standpoint, Togo's decision to extradite a former head of state is significant. Does this set a new precedent for judicial cooperation in the ECOWAS region, or does it signal a shift in how asylum for our state leaders is viewed?
Well, I think before even looking at the issue in the angle of the extradition of a former president, we need to look at it, simply as a handing over of somebody who has a status of refugees in an African country to an African country. Is totally illegal. Illegal because the two countries, Burkina Faso and Togo, have ratified the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, which clearly said that emphasizes the principle of non-refoulement. For people who are listening, the principle of non-refoulement is an international it's a principle of international law which states that somebody who has left a country because he felt that in that country he's going to die, or there are threats for his life or her life, go to another country. If that other country cannot accept the person as a refugee, the country cannot send back the person to the country of origin. He can only try to find with him or her another third country where he can stay. This is not only in the UN Convention on the Right of Refugees of 1951, it's also in the AU Convention regarding refugees of 1969, which again were ratified by the both countries. So handing over somebody who is a citizen of Burkina Faso with the status of refugees in your country to Burkina Faso is simply illegal. I need to add another very important aspect to it. In December this year, Burkina Faso, the cabinet in Burkina Faso adopted, a bill to reintroduce death penalty in the country, because death penalty was abandoned in Burkina Faso, I think in 1918 or something like that, 2018 or something like that. Now they wanted to reintroduce that death penalty in the country. So meaning that this person who has been, sent back home is also under the threat of now being sentenced to death if that bill is adopted by, there is no rule of law at the moment in Burkina Faso. You are in a transition from a military government to back to normality. So anything can happen in that particular context. And another last point that I want to really raise here is the fact that within ECOWAS, there are, there are norms that needs to be implemented when a country, an ECOWAS country, wants to extradite a person to another country. I heard that they went to court, but just in 48 hours, a person who is subject to extradition has the right to make an appeal against his extradition. So here, Damiba not only had the right to oppose to the decision of the Court of Appeal, but he could even ask the Supreme Court of Togo to have a pronouncement on this thing. None of those rules have been implemented. So from the beginning to the end, it was just violation of the right of the person who have been now, transferred to Burkina Faso. And how can we accept that kind of practices in a country that said he's under rule of law, or a country that is implementing the norms that were adopted by ECOWAS? It's simply not acceptable. It's simply a blatant violation of international law in this case.
Usman.
Well, quite a lot, because the question you asked, Imo, is that from legal perspective, and Mr. Ibrahim has just given us what the law says, especially bordering on the conventions, which, of course, Burkina Faso and Togo are also part of, even though, of course, as he has clearly clarified, Burkina Faso is currently under a military regime that is about to transition into democracy. And, of course, questions of obeying even internal laws or external laws are subject to the whims and caprices of those in power. But Mr. Ibrahima, I would like to ask, before we go to Mr. Frederick, the Burkinabe junta has already promised a fair trial for Colonel Henry. Given the current political climate in Ouagadougou, what legal safeguards must be in place for this to be seen as legitimate justice rather than a show of trial, even though, of course, you say this has already breached international charters, but the deed has been done, as they say?
Well, I want to laugh when you said Burkina Faso has promised to have a fair trial. In Burkina Faso, the president himself said if there is a decision of the decision of any judicial body that is not in line with what we think, we will not accept it, we will not implement it. Openly. You can go and Google it. Openly, they've said that last year. So what can we expect from that government? What is the interpretation of fair trial? You understand? And add to that, lawyers have been arrested. Judges have been arrested in Burkina Faso. Anybody who is against what the government think or what the government wants is arrested and sent to the battlefield. What kind of justice can we expect from it? Is the justice of the junta. And that cannot be accepted in the end. And the government of Togo knew all of this before sending Mr. Damiba to his country. So for me, it's really opening the door for, I will not be surprised tomorrow if we hear that this guy was executed. I will not be surprised because it's part of the possibilities now that we are expecting in the current situation in Burkina Faso. So for me, it's just something that anybody who has the right, who has humans and people's right and in his heart should not accept this kind of situation and should really, really condemn what was happening in what happened between Togo and Burkina Faso.
Well, let's cross over to Mr. Frederick. Before that, let me welcome Mr. Yusuf Ouattara, who has joined us from Burkina Faso. Mr. Ouattara, thank you so much for your time and welcome. Okay, while we wait for Mr. Ouattara to perhaps unmute his microphone, Mr. Frederick, let's come to you. Well, critics are arguing that this extradition is purely political, a way for Togo to strengthen its ties with the junta or the Sahel junta. Well, how much of this is about justice for the people of Burkina Faso versus diplomatic survival for neighboring states?
Well, thank you. I think to discuss the case of Paul-Henri Sandaogo Damiba accurately, we must separate the political interpretation from the judicial reality. I mean, it's essential to begin with verified facts and clearly distinguish what is a judicial procedure from what could be considered as political interpretation. Based on the official communiques from both Togo and Burkina Faso, this extradition followed a formal judicial process. On January the 5th, a formal investigation was opened in Ouagadougou, followed by an international arrest warrant on the second day, the following day, meaning on January the 6th. Togo received the formal request on January the 12th. Why am I coming back to all this timeline? Just to show that, yeah, maybe political context is not separated mutually, and the judicial aspect do not mutually exclude each other. But it's good for now to be come back to the facts and try to interpret based on what we have, because we can't also anticipate things which we do not yet have. The only facts we have are the basis upon which we can interpret the situation. So for now, as it is now, this is not a backdoor deal between Togo and Burkina Faso. I think a certain procedure have been followed for now. Also, Burkina Faso gave guarantees. I think, someone touched to that. Burkina Faso clearly gave some of the guarantees, saying that regarding this specific procedure, they will guarantee the physical integrity of Mr. Damiba. So the protection of Damiba's life and dignity is guaranteed, according to Burkina Faso. A due process also was guaranteed, the right to a fair trial and legal counsel, and the death penalty. My elder brother Ibrahim Khan evoked it a while ago, but yeah, this is underway in Burkina Faso. But Burkina Faso gave clear guarantee to Togo that a total exclusion of capital punishment will be respected, despite recent changes in its sound penal code. So it's based on these guarantees that Togo,
do you think it will just...
These guarantees are now a sort of benchmark.
Yeah, Mr. Frederick,
so where Ibrahim Khan's alert, it becomes very relevant to me. They move this from a private state matter to a public international obligation now. The world is no longer, and all of us are no longer watching the transfer itself, but we are watching now the trial. And a fair trial is what we are now all focused on. The transfer itself not being the verdict, we can say that as it is now, there is nothing we can be alarmed about. This leader, Damiba, is so far still a Burkinabe citizen, and he's just brought back to his country to respond to court based on only allegations. So far, what we have is only allegations. So what we are now watching, what we should be trying to hold Burkina Faso accountable to is the trial itself. Make sure that it is a fair trial, and make sure that Burkina Faso follow all the guarantees and respect all the guarantees they have given to Togo, so he can do the procedure for Damiba's extradition to this country.
Indeed. Well, let me bring on board Mr. Ouattara. Mr. Ouattara, thank you so much for your time. Are you there? Can you hear me? Please.
Yes, I'm here. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, good to have you on the show.
We can hear you clearly.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. Well, take us through what is currently happening in Burkina Faso and what have been the reactions of civil society groups in this development.
Yes, I think civil society is not different from Burkina citizen, because based on what we have heard, and based also on some accusation against President Damiba, I don't think that there is a real opposition or outcry in the country for sure, what everybody is expecting is a fair trial, is a trial where the truth will be told, where people will know exactly what happened. But regarding the extradition of Damiba, nobody is complaining about this here. Because
why is that so?
Exile, yes, because exile and being a refugee, it comes with responsibility. It does mean impunity. If you are in exile in the country, it means that you abide by the law or you abide by the rules or the agreement which gave way to the asylum or exile. And once you breach those rules and those agreements, it means that you are subject to extradition. And that's what exactly happened to Damiba. Many times he has been accused, Burkina authorities accused him of many actions. And I think the Togolese authorities warned him to keep quiet. And this is the rule in Africa, even in the village, when as a child, when you run to go in the family to protect yourself from another friend who is trying to beat you, they say, okay, sit, but not talk. Don't provoke the other guys outside. But if you breach the rule, then they put you outside. I think that's what is applied. And Burkina, I don't think anybody is complying, is concerned about that. We are waiting for a true trial with the possibility for Damiba to defend himself and to explain exactly what happened. And we need this in Burkina.
Well,
and I just want to add also that Burkina is not the jungle. Because when we see at the international level on Burkina, it's not true. Burkina is not a jungle.
Okay.
The judge is not beyond the law. If you breach the law, you have some judges who are corrupted, who are criminals, then he is subject to law. So the arrest of a judge does not mean that the law is not applied. Burkina is a normal country. I would say, quote unquote, a normal country.
A normal country. Indeed. Usman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ouattara, and we're glad to hear that the citizens are.
Usman, are you there?
No.
Okay, I think we lost Usman. Well, Mr. Khan, just before you jet out, I know you had talked about leaving early. Let's quickly ask you the role regional bodies like ECOWAS and AU should play in overseeing, a case like this.
Well, before coming back to your before responding to your question, I want to react to what I heard from my
Mr. Ouattara.
So Ouattara and we like it or not, law is law. Norms are norms. Even if in a village, when people are in disagreement, there are rules that needs to be respected to ensure that the person's rights are respected. We all know that Mr. Damiba was given a refugee status in Togo. That's a fact. When you are a refugee, nobody can send you back in your country of origin. Nobody can say, because the refugee status that you got is related to the fact that there was a fear in your own country that something would happen to you. That's why you left the country to go and look for safety elsewhere. Nobody can send you back home. The first violation of Mr. Damiba's right is that one, sending him back to his country. That's one. Second, Mr. Damiba, according to the African Charter ratified by Burkina Faso and ratified by Togo, has the right to a fair trial in Togo. Fair trial in Togo, meaning that from the beginning of the proceeding in January until a decision of the Supreme Court of Togo, Mr. Damiba has a right to use all the proceeding in court. He was not allowed to do all of that.
Mr. Kane.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Kane, let me just come in here because I understand that you'll be leaving any moment. And
no, I can stay now. I can stay.
Oh,
for
great.
the
Okay,
great.
Oh,
Thank you, sir.
Great. Okay, great. Because the question I have is for both you, Mr. Damiba, Mr. Kanye, and of course, Mr. Ndeki. Because since Mr. Ndeki had earlier admitted that you are the elder brother, I would want you to go first. So now part of the accusations against Mr. Damiba is that he is plotting a coup from exile, which is a very weighty allegation in any country. Now, does bringing him back to Ouagadougou consolidate Captain Traore's power, or does it risk making Damiba a martyr, as you have alleged before, for those who are dissatisfied with the current security situation in the country?
Well, you know, we were not, unfortunately, allowed to be in the court proceeding to know what was discussed during the trial, because there was a proceeding in Togo where Mr. Damiba went with his lawyers, and because the issue is this, you know, the practice in international law, when somebody is granted asylum or has a refugee status, is when he's because Togo and Burkina Faso may be you know, neighbors. When you are accused of something, the only possibility for Togo was just to decide to expel Mr. Damiba. We don't want you to be a source of problem in our amicable relationship with Burkina Faso. You expel the person. And you respect international law. You understand, not only the normative framework, but even the practice, the tradition of in international law. You have seen many times refugees, deported from one country to another country simply because two countries wanted to have good relationship. That was not done. This is a deliberate act of Togo, because Togo want to maintain good relationship with Burkina Faso, to hand over a former president. But for me, apart from all the human rights violations that I mentioned, for me, what is really inhuman is the fact that you are sending back someone in a country where the president of that country, and my colleague from Burkina Faso will not say the contrary, where the president himself publicly said, you know, for me, my idea of justice is the judiciary accept what I want. If the judiciary doesn't accept what I want, that I will never implement the decision of the judiciary. In that particular context, sending a person to this game is sending the person to die. Sending the person to be ill-treated.
Okay. No, I just want to give some facts here. Sorry.
Okay.
Yes, we know that the president did question some regulation and some law, some ways of rendering justice. But as soon as I said it, there were reforms. There were reforms in the judicial system to make the instrument adapted to his vision of justice. It means that he's not doing it out of law. Yes, he questioned, for example, the imprisonment. He said that there's no use putting somebody in prison for 2 years and feeding that person, that he's going to change the way of imprisoning people. Maybe they'll be working and then they will be contributing to the economy. So the judicial body and system has been reframed and reformed. So he didn't say, justice is what I want to do. And the other aspect I want to point out, I do agree that the Damiba case is not just a judicial case. It's political, and it is a security case. And we are talking about Togo, because whatever is happening in Burkina, if there is terrorism in Burkina, if Burkina is disorganized, Togo is at a risk. And you know, there's a movement between the two countries of terrorist group. And what Damiba wanted to do is not sure that Togo will be safe of the consequences of Damiba was planning to do. Because, you know, a coup d'etat, there are a lot of risk in the coup d'etat. You saw what happened in Sudan. We can say in Burkina, Niger, and Mali, we were lucky. But a coup d'etat can lead to a real civil war. And this cannot keep Togo safe. So I think there is a judicial aspect, there is a political aspect, there are economic aspects, but there is a terrorism aspect.
But you also
and
look
as
at
I
the
say again, being
Mr.
a
WADR.
refugee means responsibility. It means responsibility. If you don't abide by the law, then you breach the agreement which allow you to stay there.
Well,
Thank you.
Mr. Ouattara, what we are
Yes.
saying that the case is an allegation against Damiba, and there is no statement or no guarantee that he had committed any crime while there. Talking about human rights now, is this not infringing on his right? The fact that there is already a protocol on the refugee status, and yet he's being extradited to the country. Can he sue the government infringing on his right?
No, I don't think, personally, I trust Togo authorities, and because he was not just extradited, he went through judicial process, through the court process. So personally, I trust the authorities. And if you see the charges that have been alleged against Damiba, there's not a alleged of coup d'etat. Actually, it's I think it's a money laundering, as a financing a terrorist activity. So I don't think in the charges there is the case of the coup d'etat actually. And there are so much evidence today that I don't think that Damiba will just question why he was extradited. I think the best way for him is to defend himself, to find a good lawyer, somebody who will well defend him. And I think the authority of Burkina will respect it. And as I say, I don't think that capital punishment is going to apply to Damiba. That's why the prosecutor did not mention those charges that can lead to capital punishment. Back to you.
Well, indeed. Mr. Frederick, let me come to you. What do you think this case, how can it actually influence how other countries handle leaders accused of abuses after losing power?
Well, it's certainly a step toward the end of sort of safe exile and impunity that goes with it. For a long time, exile was safe valve, a sort of safe valve in African politics. For decades, West African borders were sick, and and exile meant a sort of immunity, especially for former leaders. The recent case regarding Burkina Faso is Blaise Compaoré, who is still exiled in Côte d'Ivoire. The Damiba case suggests that borders are becoming thinner for former leaders. This extradition signals that political asylum no longer political asylum can no longer be indefinitive. So it is kind of a signal telling people that, yeah, you may be a former leader of a country, but when they are the country allegations about you, you may respond. And I agree with Ibrahim Khan. In respect of all the regional framework and even the international standards, this could be done in a different country, a sort of third-party country. But one day or other, this is a signal, a very important one, showing these leaders that, yeah, no more impunity can be indefinitive in any case. So the extradition is a signal for this. The political asylum no longer protects you from criminal charges, especially when it is security allegations. And I would like us to come back to these allegations concerning Damiba in this specific case. You know, we are talking about grave allegations. You touched to us security issues. You know. Money, embezzlement of money, the public funds, and even some of them touch to security. I mean, some of them touch to this law, the law number 046/2024, regarding the financing of terrorism and state security. So it's based on all these grave allegations that Togo sovereignly decided to extradite Damiba to his country, having previously had, as I said earlier, the guarantees from Burkina Faso that there will be no death penalty. Damiba's rights will be respected. I clearly hear Elder Ibrahim Khan's alert and preoccupation around this. But Burkina Faso, as a sovereign country, it might not be, his governance apparatus might not be the one, a legitimate one in terms of not being there by a clear electoral process, being a governance apparatus from a coup d'etat. But the judiciary of Burkina Faso is still operating. So for now, there is nothing else, because other Burkina-based citizens are now responding to the court that is there. And Damiba is still a Burkina-based citizen. So once all of this is done, that this arrêté is issued from the appeal court of Lomé, and he's now back to his country. The only thing we can do now is watch for the trial. That is what I said earlier, that the only thing we should do as civil society, as watchdog bodies of this, be it at regional or even as Mr. Wedrago at the national level, what we should now push for, advocate for, and really be watchful for is this, for the Damiba's rights to be respected. Burkina Faso stick to his guarantees he gave Togo not to apply the death penalty, and make sure that Damiba faces the court with his rights respected, so that he can respond to all these allegations. And by the end of the day, if this end up not being only allegations and there is no verdict, no basis, evidence-based decisions showing that Damiba is clearly responsible for all these allegations, he should be just set free. Yeah, there was a coup, and Burkina Faso did not pursue Damiba following the coup, saying that, yeah, we've ousted him from power and we have this and this against him. It happened after all these allegations that are related to trying to jeopardize the country's safety, being implicated in terrorist financing and all that, and all those. So let's give him the chance to respond to court, and and really give contradict all these allegations, show that they are not really evidence-based, and the country and Burkina Faso's government does not have a solid proof against him.
I think your point is well noted. Of course, he should be given time to respond to all the allegations. And of course, you also did talk about Ibrahim Traore, that is the leader of the country at the moment. Of course, what brought him to power may not be legitimate in the eye of those who view democracy as the acceptable norm of government. And you said the judiciary is still functioning. But I want to ask Mr. Ouattara, because he is on ground also. I want you to just take us through, who is the ultimate beneficiary of this extradition? Is it Ibrahim Traore or the people of Burkina Faso? Mr. Ouattara.
Yes, I think it's first the people of Burkina Faso, even if the president, Ibrahim Traore, is beneficial for him. Why is this beneficial to the people? Because I don't think Burkina need any coup d'etat anymore presently. We really don't need this, because it disrupt the governance structure, it disrupt the security instrument, and we are facing terrorists, and we are in the momentum now. We are in a very good momentum in terms of recovering the territory, in terms of bringing peace, in terms of refugees who are going back home, and in terms of development as well. I think we are in the momentum. So the contradiction should be within, maybe through more political discussion, more open civic space, I think those are things we should call for. But I don't think we can stand another coup d'etat because, as I say, you can plan a coup d'etat, but you don't know how it's going to happen. You don't know how it's going to end. And even in the audio that we listened, the plan was to assassinate some leaders. The plan was to assassinate some officers, to take on some military camp. But you don't know how those guys are going to retaliate. And as I said, it can lead to the Sudan case where you have two forces, no one is capable of dominating the situation, and then it's a civilian who will pay for their life. So for me, the primary beneficiary are Burkina people. Of course, the leaders also get some benefits.
Imo will want us to round up this very
Yes.
segment in the next 2 minutes.
Yes.
But I wouldn't want us to round it up without asking Mr. Kani this very final question from my own end. Of course, we know that the AU and ECOWAS have been at loggerheads with Burkinabe junta. Now, how do you think they will react, or how should they respond to this particular move at this time, Mr. Kani?
Well, they will be silent, to be frank with you. They will be silent because today the mood in the region is not to really create another problem that will jeopardize all the effort that they are doing. And at the cost of human rights violation on anything. You've seen what is happening in Guinea-Conakry. You know, despite the fact that Guinea has ratified the African Charter on Democracy, Election and Governance, a military coup happened. The head of the junta, in violation of the provision of the charter, has remained in power, even didn't bother to renounce to his position of member of the Guinean army. And yesterday, the congratulation came from Addis Ababa. For me, that's not the question. For me, the question is, are we really accepting to be bound by rule of law or not? That's for me the ultimate question. And I think it's just give me 1 or 2 seconds to really explain. The problem is not just that we take a person, take him to Burkina Faso, and his right will be respected or not. No, it's from the beginning. What happened is wrong. And if what happened is wrong at the beginning, all the rest in the procedure are wrong.
Okay.
Completely
That's
wrong.
Well noted.
And we cannot see that Damiba will never have a fair trial simply because his right from the beginning were violated.
Indeed. We want to say sincere thank you for your time with us this morning. But before we close this session, we want to hear the last words from, of course, Mr. Ndeki. Just in few seconds, you give us your final word before, of course, Mr. Ouattara will do as well.
Yeah, thank you. As Ibrahim said, I think this is the Damiba case is giving us many lessons. One of which, as I said earlier, countries, we still have legal frameworks, we still have norms, but the countries are still behaving based on their own interests. So we have this normative frameworks, but we still have practice, which are not matching it at the entire. So we are learning again from this that Togo acted as a sovereign country having it. So we didn't touch to the economic aspect of it, but Togo has economic interest in its relations with AES countries, especially Burkina Faso, which also the country wanted to safeguard. We didn't touch to it, but it's showing that country will always continue to have their practice and to pursuing their own interests. Yeah.
Well, Mr. Ouattara, your last thought on this.
Thank you very much.
No, I just want to mention that if ECOWAS and African Union do not have good voices now, it's because their authority is undermined by their attitude. But the double standard attitudes, they are not walking the talk, because we saw many opponents from Cote d'Ivoire were extradited from Mauritania, from Togo. Nobody talk about that. No, so. The double standards and the fact that people are not walking the talk, actually, it undermines their authority. Thank you.
Indeed. Well, Mr. Yusuf
All right.
Ouattara, the policy strategist and public affairs analyst, thank you so much for your time and being a part of the program. And Mr. Frederick Decky, thank you so much, regional governance and security analyst. Thank you for bringing in your wealth of experience. And of course, our very own Mr. Ibrahim Khan. Mr. Khan, thank you so much for your time and missing some of your activities to be part of this discussion. We appreciate you. Thank you so much. And do have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Indeed.
Bye-bye.
All right. Well, we cross over to our next discussion. Following the recent legislative elections in January 2026, provisional results in Benin show that the ruling coalition has swept all 109 seats in the National Assembly. Well, while opposition parties like the Democrat participated, they failed to meet the strict 20% constituency threshold required to gain representation. This leaves Benin with a monocolored parliament for the second time in a decade, raising fears of democratic backsliding. Usman.
Well, of course, we have someone who is best suited to help us understand this. We've invited from Cotonou, Mr. Gafodu Fapoho, a veteran Beninese journalist. Gafodu. Mr. Gafodu, I don't know if he's joined us. Thank you very much for being here. Okay, before Mr. Gafodu will join us, we also have from Accra joining us, Omolara Balogun. She is Head Policy Influencing and Advocacy and Policy, West Africa Civil Society Institute. Omolara, thank you very much and welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
And it is good
I see that you've been patient. Yeah. You've actually been patient all through the first segment. I'm sure you had also wanted to say a thing or two on that first conversation.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah.
Usman was asking if you have any comment since you've been part of, listening keenly to the first conversation, if you would like to say anything to it before we continue with Benin.
Well, absolutely. I think my senior colleague Ibrahim and other speakers did absolute justice to the situation between Togo and Burkina Faso. I think it's really a sad event because, like Ibrahima said, an average citizens of any countries in the world deserves the opportunity to have their rights protected, especially in situations of extraditions and the likes. And looking at the situation that led to him fleeing his home country, it's important to look at the potential outcome of this recent decisions. I wouldn't be surprised. I would be surprised actually if he is given the opportunity to fair hearing and outcomes of the process, considering the nature of the type of government that Burkina Faso currently holds, that is completely off descent. So I think we need to continue to observe the situation. We had hope that ECOWAS and other our democratic allies would have stepped in to see how his rights can be protected at this very important time. But at this point, it is what it is. We just need to advance and amplify our advocacy as civil society to ensure that the process of trial is fair enough for him to get whatever justice, in his own country. But we wished Togo had thought differently, in taking that decision.
Well, that conversation with Togo and Burkina Faso would not end. I mean, we will continue talking about it even until the trial ends. But let's cross over to Benin, where it seems to be a one-party thing running the government. Well, from your view, what does a one-party or one-direction legislation mean for governance and lawmaking?
Well, thank you so much. I think it's important for us to have, a quick scan of what the region, has been experiencing in recent decades. The wave of democratic backsliding and crisis of democracy generally has been the order of the day, I would say, in the past 10 years. Since 2016 thereabout. I think 2016 was the last time the region kind of experienced stable, calm, and progressive democracy, of some sort, especially at the removal of Yahya Jammeh up to this moment. But since 2020, the period has been characterized with, significant retrogression to the democratic gains that we have made. And before then, we see Benin, Senegal, and Ghana to be the beacon of democracy. So the question is, what happened? How did we get here in Benin? An average democratic, thriving democracy has three arms of government. We all learned this in school. We have the executive, we have the judiciary, and then we have the legislative. So for any country to be running a monocolored legislative means that the basic principles of democracy is missing or completely gone. And Benin, as we have it, is supposed to be a pluralistic democracy society. But when we look at some of the recent decisions, especially in 2019, the new electoral code, which introduced some very restrictive requirement for oppositions and any candidate at all, to be qualified to run for presidency and other positions, it's really difficult for the oppositions to make any significant process in a situation whereby the entire parliament since 2019 had been, in favor of the president. Now, this is the danger of a situation like this to our democracy. And I'm going to start with Benin democracy specifically. In a situation where the parliament cannot, play the role for which the institution is established for, that of representation, representing different constituency, different views from across the respective countries. Where this role of representation is denied, then democracy is denied. And it also means that the current parliament, which are all in favor, cronies of Mr. President, can only act as a rubber stamp parliament, if you like. It makes democracy so cheap, and it reduces, if not completely annihilate, the oversight and accountability responsibility of a parliament. How do we monitor the actions, the activities, the programs of the executive, where the section of the institution that is supposed to do so is embedded with the executive? And I believe it's going to be the same thing with the third arm of government, the judiciary. So the monitoring of the executive branch of government is completely eroded in Benin's democracy. And this brings me to the question of even lawmaking, which is the primary responsibility of the parliament. How do you make laws that have zero opposition, zero debate? I think it cheapens the whole essence of democracy, because democracy is supposed to be a kind of government that creates room for debate, that creates rooms for, conversations, ideas, actions and inactions. But all these are kind of have no space in the current Benin democracy. And the last election is actually quite funny. I'm sorry, just to round up that very question. The last question is election is actually quite funny, because the report we see from the provisional result is that the Democrats, that is the main opposition party, failed completely to even meet the requirement threshold, based on the recent electoral code, to gain even one seat. I think it's just the worst. It's the worst outcome ever.
Well, of course, we've seen it, especially in Africa, West Africa to be specific, where the ruling party, where the president, of course, naturally belongs, always make attempts before, during, and even after elections to have the majority of the parliamentarians, dancing to the drums, the drum beats of the president. But the case of Benin, what we are seeing as a reality, as a democratic reality, would we say this is a downside of democracy? Because before now, one would have expected that, okay, even allow a fair, because most of the parliamentarians in Benin today will tell you that, of course, they contested and they won their seats. that they belong to the same party or the same coalition with the president is none of their fault. Is this a downside of democracy?
It is absolutely a downside of democracy, any kind of democracy at all, especially in a country like Benin or anyone. I think most of the countries in West Africa where we have diverse groups of people with diverse ideas and interests. So it's a downside of democracy in the sense that it's removed the whole essence of democratic principles, accountabilities, and oversight. For example, in a situation like this, it makes it very easy for the incumbent to make any amendment at all to the constitution or to any law, or even elongate its own stay in power, because every of the lawmakers are in tune with him. So there's really no democracy. I mean, what we have is what I would call a caricature democracy, a rubber stamp kind of legislative, chamber. So it's downsides in the sense that it does not create room for dissent, for opposing views, for quality debate of what the governance structure or the government should deliver to its people. And this kind of situation has the potential, to increase, political instability, because it gives opportunity for people, for the opposition to boycott elections. And where boycotts happens, it means the president and its party and its supporter are contesting against themselves. And the result, it's best imagined. So it's a total downside to democracy. Any democracy that lacks checks and balances, especially among the three arms of government, cannot produce the right dividend. Democracy must create rooms for diverse views and dissent. This is not the case in Benin. So, for lack of better word, we continue to use the concept of democracy. But democracy, as we know, the most popular definition of democracy says, is the government of the people, by the people, for the people. So how inclusive is this people that is central to the definition? We do not have that in Benin. It's rather unfortunate.
Well, Imo.
We do have Gafudu Sakpoho joining us from Benin. He's a veteran journalist. Gafudu, thank you so much for being here on the program.
You're welcome. It's a very big pleasure joining.
Indeed, we have been waiting for you all morning. Well, quickly take us through what the situation is in Benin. And you have been following this development since it started. What can you make out of it? And what are the people saying about this situation in Benin?
Well, the situation in Benin is, I would say people just have to follow, because everything has been done for people just to follow. For the next 4 years, there won't be any possibility to, there is a political suspension, which means that with the new constitution, there won't be any chance for people to criticize for the next 4 years. And the government is saying it's for peace sake, it's for stability sake. So, the country needs to be stabilized for development purpose. And there shouldn't be anything that would jeopardize the efforts that the government is making to develop the country. If there should be anything, it's either in support of what is being done by the government, or maybe constructive proposition should be made by the people talking. Otherwise, people shouldn't talk. So, and now the government is making a big effort to kind of showcase what they have been doing so far in terms of infrastructure and how it's impacting the people. Because one thing that people have been complaining about is lack of social programs for the population. And for that, the government has its own different way of seeing, considering what is social. To the government, social does not mean sharing money. It does not mean, but it's developing things that will help people. And that's, so people and the government have a different view of what can be considered as social policies. To the government, we are building infrastructure, we are making reforms that will make the lives of people much easier. And to the government, this is what really is more important than doing things that will physically impact positively the lives of people. So,
Gafudo, let me just interject here. I mean, with no opposition in the National Assembly, which is very key, who is now left to provide oversight on the executive? Are we seeing the end of the Beninese democratic miracle, as people say, Benin, the beacon of democracy?
No, I think the president himself said it a few years ago when he went to visited France. Benin is redefining its own democracy, not democracy as it has been considered since 1990, not that democracy that was known of Benin. Now the government is considering another form of democracy, which is much more a development democracy. A democracy without investment, a democracy without, I don't know what they consider to be mess. So it's a democracy which is much more ordered, a democracy which is much more oriented towards development. And as such, maybe reforms and maybe some form of strictness has to be put in place, not a democracy where everybody is free to do whatever they want. No. So this is the new form of democracy. And so Benin is no more in the logic of in that democracy that was known for long, but it's the new form of democracy that the government is trying to put in place, a democracy for development.
Well, Usman.
Yes, I wanted to ask.
It's quite interesting.
Very, very interesting submission, and coming from someone on the ground, it says a lot. Benin is redefining its own democracy. I think I captured that, and it's very telling of what we are witnessing. But I wanted to ask, before I go over to Omolara, going by the March 2024 amendment to the Electoral Code, which actually requires a presidential candidate to have at least 15% of the total number of members of parliament and mayors in the country, which before then you only needed 10%, which was roughly about 16 sponsors. But currently you need 100 and, the parliament has 109 members and 77 mayors, a total of 186. Now, were there actually, reasons that necessitated this amendment to increase the requirement for sponsorship?
Well, actually, everything is done to, the government just wanted to clear the country of what they called some types of politicians that are not really, that are there just for the sake of politics, not really for development. So they wouldn't say, okay, listen, you guys are not going to elections, but things have to be put in place to really put them aside. And then if you ask, the government will say, the president will say, no, rules are there. We are working according to the rules. So laws have been passed, everything has been done, and they are still considering that we are still in the rule of law, then nothing is being violated. everything is done according to the law. But which type of law? A law that is passed by MPs that's on the government side. Laws that have been passed with maybe the support of the government. So, but the laws of the government becomes the laws of the country without the participation of the opposition. And when the opposition does not meet the requirements set by those laws, they say, well, it's because they did not do what the law said. That's why they couldn't make it. So, but that
so there is a problem with the law itself.
Actually, there's a problem because currently there's this party that supports the president that is called Moel Bene. When they were like campaigning for parliamentary elections, they said, yes, we are supporting the president, but we are trying to criticize some of the laws. We don't agree with the way some laws were passed, and we are coming to the parliament to rectify that. But we are in support of the government, we are in support of the president, but we are coming to the parliament to rectify some of the ways laws are passed.
Well,
we don't know if that was for electoral purpose or they really meant what they were saying, which means that there are some laws that actually did not really get the consensus of all the parties.
Well, let me cross over to Molara. I mean, not too long before Gafudu joined us, you defined the basic democracy which we were all, taught in school, which is democracy of the people, by the people, and for the people. What other democracy could be different from what you defined? Omalara, are you there?
My apologies. I forgot to unmute. To add to what my colleague just said, I think we should not mistake what democracy actually is and what it's supposed to look like. And I'm not really talking about imported kind of democracy, even if it's indigenous, even if it's homegrown. What do we mean by democracy? So when I hear him say the government said they are developing a kind of democracy that is Beninese, what does that mean? When we're talking about democracy of any kind should feature absolute freedom. People should be able to gather, freedom of assembly, of association, of expressing what they like, what they don't like, without fear or favor of any repressor, if you like. Democracy must feature participation. It is not a one-man business or form of government. Right. Not even military regime is. I mean, the military regimes, they have the cabinet and the people they work with, even though the junta is led by an individual. A democracy or any settings at all that lacks active participation of citizens cannot be likened to democracy. So I'm going to really have to, disagree with the government of Benin there. Democracy that lacks representation. Everybody should be represented. In the democracy, we do not have that. We are talking about justice and the rule of law. Now, Benin claims that everything that is being done is by the law that, of the state. How were those laws developed? Because lawmaking is the responsibility of the parliament that is being controlled by the executive and probably supported by the judiciary. It's not the people's law. When we say law of Benin, we are talking about the law of the people of Benin, not one that is made by a group of friends in the parliament or in the executive. So multi-party system, regardless of where this democracy is being implemented, multiple ideas form the basics of anything we want to call democracy. Right. So I just wanted to add that to what my colleague said, that it's Benin's democracy. Now, in the absence of democracy that I've described, what else exists? Yeah, we have authoritarianism. So anything that doesn't mirror the description I've just given is autocratic.
Are you saying this is what we're experiencing right now in Benin?
It's absolutely what you can call it constitutional autocrats. You know, we day in, day out, we keep inventing different concepts, you know, to mirror or define the different types of democracy that we are seeing across the region. This is what I would call, you know, simple constitutional coup or legal coup, whatever you want to call it. The actual coup in Benin wasn't the one that we witnessed a couple of weeks ago, you know, the botched one. But this one is being orchestrated, is being implemented, being delivered by supposed Democrats themselves. Any situation, you know, like this, which, removes participation of dissent, it's a coup in itself. So if you ask me, what we have in Benin now falls short of democracy as it can be defined anywhere in the world. Anywhere in the world. Yeah, that's it.
Well, let me cross over to Gafidu. I mean, do you agree with what Omolara has just said, that there is a constitutional coup in Benin? And at this point, who is there to check the lawmakers? Who is there to check the government? I mean, if everything is one-sided. Gafudo, this is for you.
Well, thank you so much. I believe, first, I wouldn't like us to take things as just a business that concerns just Benin.
Yeah.
It's hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
We're with you.
All right. So this is just a global trend. Nowhere, I'm sorry to say that nowhere on the globe today, even though the founders of democracy,
Mr. Gafodu. Okay, I think we seem to have lost Mr. Gafodu to poor internet connectivity. Imo?
Yes, Omolara, let me come to you.
Okay.
The question I asked.
Before Omolara comes in, Imo.
Okay, go ahead.
Before she comes in, because it's very important for our listener to understand exactly what we are talking about when we talk about the electoral reform in Benin that has brought about this very debate. Of course, qualify, because 2026 is here and Benin is looking forward to an election. But to qualify for the presidency of Benin Republic in this coming election, candidates must first of all navigate what, as we have already discussed, is a very, very rigorous sponsorship system in Benin. It's called parrainage. I don't know if that pronunciation is correct, but it requires the support from at least 15% of the nation's total members of parliament and mayors, who are roughly about 20. That's roughly about 28 sponsors. Now, under this very controversial, amendment, which was done in March 2024, these sponsors must be distributed across at least 3/5, that is 15 out of 24 of the country's legislative constituencies, to ensure geographic diversity. Now, the party alignment rule mandates that an elected official can generally only sponsor one candidate. Before now, one member of parliament can actually sponsor multiple candidates, but now it has been restricted. You can only sponsor one candidate from their own political party, and each official is restricted to backing just one candidate, as I've said earlier. A lot of other requirements, which include there are financial barriers, there is what they call party loyalty. That is, sponsors are legally bound to support candidates from their own party alone. Now, one elected official can only sponsor one candidate, which you have said before. Now, financial barrier. In addition to sponsorship, candidates must pay a non-refundable deposit of 250 million CFA. That is approximately about $400,000 US. I mean, these are the requirements for you to contest, to qualify to contest for the presidency of Benin in the coming 2026 election. And then, given the picture that we have today, that the entire legislature is in the camp of the president, your guess is as good as mine when it comes to the chances other people stand to contest for election. Omolara, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I think the question that was asked to my colleagues before it dropped off was if the Constitution, if you can reframe the question for me again. Omar, are you there?
Yes, I was asking. I mean, we talked about the. You mentioned constitutional coup, and that was what I threw at him. And I'm saying that in the absence of opposition, who is there to check the executives? Who is there to make the complaint and bring the feelings or the thoughts of the people to the government? What happens in this case?
Absolutely. I think the answer is very simple. Nobody. So the states, the government, the president can run the state as they so wish and will. Absolutely nobody. And like he was saying before it dropped, or I think it's back, it is back now.
Okay.
This is not limited to Benin. Without going far to your right, Nigeria, we are witnessing something that is close to that, with daily defections.
I was actually going to ask you that.
We are I mean, before you ask me, let me just say it. We are witnessing something very close to that, and it's a dangerous trend where people, and the case of Nigeria, it's even more ridiculous. I mean, you can get into power from one political party and defect to another without zero consequences. Like nothing will happen. These are dangerous moves, dangerous optics for Nigeria's democracy in itself. Everybody that has a prize is being bought ahead of the 2027 elections. We witnessed similar thing in Cote d'Ivoire and Togo. So it's on and on. Recently, I think last week we had election in Uganda. It's the same. So I think globally, which was the point he was trying to make, globally, the nature of democracy is not only under threat. The nature of democracy as we used to know it is being redefined everywhere you go to. Now, the onus lies on us as people, as citizens of respective countries, to ensure that our democracy is redefined in a way that mirror our aspirations. Yes, the changes are happening even in the United States of America. Who could have thought? Yeah. Who could have imagined America, the leader of democracy at its word, the home of rule of law, the home of freedom, of right, just name it, within 2 years? Look at what we are saying. So there's no doubt that the course of democracy is changing. And I see it as a huge opportunity for every one of us, from Nigeria to Ghana, to Togo, to Cote d'Ivoire, to Senegal, Cape Verde, Kenya, Uganda, just name it, to take this opportunity to remodel our own democracy in a way that delivers justice, in a way that upholds the rule of law, in a way that strengthens social accountability, in a way that eliminates corruption. So it's an opportunity. How would that happen if we are not actively involved? And this is where the situation in Benin is gravely concerning. The active participation that could remodel the course of democracy for the Benin people is being eliminated by this move.
Well, Gafudu, thank you for coming back on. Yes, you were saying, you were responding to the question on if there is a constitutional coup and who will be there for the people now that everybody is one-sided. Hello?
Hello, I'm here.
Yes, please go ahead with your response earlier. Continue.
Yes, I said, I think my colleague from Nigeria, she made it. We are witnessing a redefinition of democracy everywhere on the globe. But what I like about her point is that our redefinition of democracy should also include justice to everybody, not just to a few people, justice to everybody. And particularly in Benin, the concern in Benin is that according to the new constitution, when you go to the parliament, you are allowed to run for elections till you die. I mean, like for life. If your party allows you, you can run for elections over, there's no limits. And when she was mentioned that we need to involve ourselves, we need to participate, I'm not seeing our youths doing that because our current MPs who are of certain age, they are no more given any chance, any opportunity to the youth now to step in and have a say, because the party will support them till the end of their days, if it's possible. So where is the role of the youth in this? That's where I find this redefinition of democracy very, very, I would say, very, is a big concern, actually. And I see that the youths are now really being considered in this. If, as an MP, I'm 50 years old, I can keep running for elections till I get 90. So what will happen to the youth that are aspiring to participate in building the country?
Indeed.
So that's where the big concern is. And I don't know how to call this, and if it's really, I mean, a man of 90 years old in the next maybe few years, how will he continue building the country? We know that at certain age, we are not totally in full control of our capacities to think, to suggest, and also we have this trend. I mean, the world is very dynamic. Things change every second. After a few years, those people will no more be connected to the realities of the moment.
Well, Mr. Gofudu, as we round up this conversation because of time, let me take you, maybe your last thought on this. I mean, looking ahead, what reforms do you think could restore political balance and competitiveness in Benin, as your final thought?
That I've not seen anyone yet. I'm not seeing any law yet. I'm not seeing any reform yet. Probably we have to wait maybe in the next 14 years, maybe after the coming president, because when the parliamentarians are allowed to run forever, and even the president has the next 14 years, because definitely they say he will not. If he's running again after 7 years, he will not need any sponsorship, because he has already proven everything. He doesn't need any sponsorship. So definitely he's going to win. So let's say he's coming for 14 years. Maybe after 14 years, we can expect something to happen.
All right.
Quite a very precarious situation that Beninese have found themselves because this waiting period is very, very long, as we will say here in Nigeria. But from my own side, let me cross over to Molara for her closing thoughts on this. Obviously, he has said he has ruled out the role of the youth. They don't even have a fighting chance. But I want to believe that civil society groups, the media, will definitely have something that they can continue to do as a way of educating citizens and sensitizing the citizens. But Omolara, your closing thoughts. Looking ahead now, what indicators should citizens watch out to assess whether democratic governance is improving or deteriorating in situations such as we find ourselves in Benin?
Yeah, thank you so much. I think at this point, we really need to speak beyond Benin. When you look at the region as we have it, West Africa is witnessing a level of democratic retrogression that we hadn't witnessed in about 2 decades. And what that means for us is that as civil society, most of the gains that we've invested heavily in and made is being eroded. Right. So beyond Benin, now this is to Benin, Nigeria, Togo, and the likes. We have seen that the danger of executive overreach, for lack of better word, which is what we have witnessed across the different countries, needs to be put in check. How can we do that? Citizens need to be more observant, need to participate in advocacy and campaigns. For example, in Benin right now, it's very clear, I agree with my colleague what he has said, there is no hope of any change, no gleam of hope whatsoever for these 2026 elections, because we do not have any law to elicit such. Right? We don't have a new law. There's not going to be any reform. The opposition can decide to boycott the entire processes, but there's still, this guy is still going to move on, and it could be there for the next 40 years, like you said. So we need to. What it does for us is that it also erodes, the regional norms, especially that of ECOWAS, because Benin is still an active member of ECOWAS, unlike the AES countries.
All right, Omolara, we have to go.
We have to look at the security situations, what this means where we have zero dissent in the countries, and looking at the different, happenings around us in terms of freedoms with Nigeria and those in the Sahel. What would a boiling or an escalating Benin, what does it mean to, for the region? We have to look at that.
I think we have to go at this point so we can prepare for our midday news. But we want to thank you so much. This is a conversation that will continue, and we'll always bring you on board to speak more on it. Well, Omolara Balogun is the head policy influencing and advocacy and policy West Africa Civil Society Institute, WAXI. Omolara, thank you so much for your time and joining us on the program. And then, of course, in Cotonou, Mr. Gafudu Sakpo, a veteran Beninese journalist and CEO of LEP TV. Thank you so much, Mr. Gafudu, for joining us on the program. Well, and that's it on this edition of Citizens Hour. Many thanks for joining us. I am Imo Edet here in Dakar.
And I am Usman Umar, right here in Abuja, thanking you for investing your time with us today and asking you to continue to take responsibility for your today and tomorrow.
And the Augustine Coley will be up next for our midday news. Good afternoon.
This 2026 Citizens Hour returns live on radio. Renewed, more interactive, and closer to you. You can now join us live every Saturday on West Africa Democracy Radio, 94.9 FM in Dakar, starting 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. in French, and from 10:30 a.m. to 11:55 a.m. in English. You can also follow our live streamings on Facebook and YouTube. Citizens Hour is your space to speak up. You can now comment live on issues, ask questions, and engage directly with our presenters and invited experts as we unpack major developments shaping West Africa. Make your voice heard. Be part of the conversation every Saturday from 9 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. in French and 10:30 a.m. to 11:55 a.m.